What is up, JZFishing? And in today's video, we're going to be taking an in-depth look at the Shakespeare Dock Runner ice fishing combo. Let's get into it. All right, my first impressions of this combo were pretty good. Let's start off by the rods themselves and how many we bought. So because these rods and reels are only $16, we didn't just buy one, we bought 6. And for those of you asking why 6, because that's a huge number, we run a fishing camp, and the max amount of people we can bring is 6, and we wanted to use these rods and reels for our fishing camp. So we were like, whatever, let's just bite the tongue, and we'll buy all 6 now. We bought 4 of them on Amazon, and 4 was the max that we could buy at one time, so we then bought the other 2 on a website called Shields. Hope I'm saying that correctly. If you're interested, once again, in buying any of these, link in the description. Let's talk about packaging now. Overall, the packaging was really good. The rods and the reels were all working. They all came perfectly fine. I didn't have to return any. Didn't have to have any shipping issues. The shipping was pretty quick, and it was covered in foam. The rod was really secure in the box. There was no chips. There's been no defects so far in every single one of the rods. We've tested each rod pretty thoroughly. The rod itself, first impressions were very sturdy and a lot higher quality than I thought. For $16, this rod felt a lot better than I was expecting. And then the reel itself was only okay. I felt like it was pretty smooth. However, it was very plasticky and sheet feeling. The line itself was not great. It came with 6-pound Stren line, I believe. I tried to make a cast with it and immediately tangled, and I heard that was one of the things people were saying in the reviews. So if you are interested in buying this combo, the first thing I would say is immediately take off the factory line, even though it's a lot of line, and replace it with some more expensive line that's spooled by either a tackle shop or a friend or even you, because the line that came with it was very prone to tangling and line twists. Overall, my first impressions were very high. I was surprised by the quality for $16. Once again, that's a very low price, especially for a rod and reel. So I was very surprised, pleasantly surprised, and I was happy to get out and test this thing out in the water. Okay, so let's start off this review by talking about the rod itself. So forgetting the reel, let's just talk about the rod. So first, let's take off the reel. That's how you take off the reel. And let's just talk about this rod. This rod right here is 3'6", so it's very short in terms of fishing rods. If you are new to fishing, this is very short. There aren't many rods that are like this. This rod, I believe, is specifically designed for ice fishing. That's really the only time where you'll see a rod that's this small. But yeah, so this small size has a bunch of upsides, but also has a bunch of downsides. Some of the upsides are, first of all, it's extremely portable. It's something that you can throw in your backpack and bike to a fishing spot or even walk to a fishing spot. It's also really nice because when you throw it in your car with, like we usually do, 6 other rods, they don't get tangled as easy. I'm not sure if maybe that's just the rod being shorter or that's just us, but I've had a lot less tangles with these shorter rods. Now, some downsides, in my opinion, the biggest downside is casting distance. Usually, a good rule of thumb is the longer the fishing rod, the longer you get of a casting distance. Now, this thing is only 3'6", so as you can tell, it's not casting very far. Casting is not its main feature, and casting with it just feels kind of clunky, especially if you're trying to go for those deep casts, especially like in trout fishing here in the Bay Area. For the stock trout, you want to really cast far. It feels very awkward and weird. So especially if you're used to like a 7-foot rod, you'll definitely feel the difference between a 7-foot rod casting and this bad boy. Now, however, this rod is also very flexible and durable. As you can tell, this is not something I can normally do with a fishing rod. That's not normal. Most fishing rods won't do this. As you can tell, very durable. I mean, this thing is just an absolute beast. There are not many fishing rods right now on the market that can do this. So what's nice about it is it can handle fish that are big, and what's cool about it is when I'm casting even a 1 or 2 ounce weight, which is not something that this rod is meant to be handling, it handles it pretty well. You'll probably see a video of me casting it. It does a really good job, and a surprisingly good job. Now, let's talk about the guides on the rod. If you don't know what a guide is, it's these little holes right here that you're going to put your line through for when you're actually fishing. So far, I've had no issues with the guides. They do feel a little bit cheap, and one of the biggest things that I noticed between this rod compared to a more expensive rod is an expensive rod usually has a rubber in, like a little bit of a rubber inside that helps the line kind of smoothly come out of the reel. And well, pretty much it also helps is if there's like a crack here, if you continuously cast without the rubber, there's a good chance that your line will fray and possibly break. These guides do not have that, which doesn't really surprise me considering this is a cheaper rod. It is just something though that I would like you to let you know is that these guides don't have that rubber. So far, no bending, no breakage in the guides, but we'll see in the next few months, years, how these things hold up. Overall, it's a very, very quality rod, and for the price of $16, you can't beat it. To be fair, there's nothing else on the market that comes even close to this rod in terms of pricing. It's just an overall really, really great rod. Okay, now that we've covered the actual rod itself, let's go into a deeper dive on the reel. So the reel is one of the harder parts of the rod or of the combo to kind of unpack because there's so much going on, and for the price, it's hard to say anything. So overall, as I said, first impressions, this reel is a lot smaller. This is it compared to my hand. It's a small reel. It still holds a good amount of line, which is one of the big pluses of it. It surprisingly holds a ton of line. It holds 190 yards of 4-pound mono, which is a ton, 140 yards of 6-pound mono, and almost 110 yards of 8-pound mono. So a pretty good line capacity size for a reel of this size. I believe it's probably a 1,000 or 2,000 size reel. Once again, as I said earlier, it's all plastic. The only metal piece is the bail, which even that feels very, very flimsy. It's definitely not something that I feel like is going to last us a while. Uh, it once again for the price, however, I think it's a pretty good option. Um, the smoothness is relatively good. I definitely believe that it's one of the kinds of reels that you have to be pretty high maintenance with, adding tons of oil to it, because I feel like this is something that even if it gets a little bit of water in it, could rust and corrode very easily, and that could definitely ruin that smoothness effect. Okay, let's talk about the drag a little bit. So the drag on this reel is really interesting. It has a kind of lag, if that makes any sense. So if I have this drag really loose, and then I tighten it very quickly, it takes a second for the reel to kind of compensate and switch to that tighter drag. And one thing too that I figured out is the drag sometimes is very stiff, if that makes any sense. The drag is not very, very good. In fact, I think the drag is probably the worst part of this reel. It's not very quality, and I have a feeling like it's going to be something that's going to break very, very early on in this rod and reel. One nice key feature about this reel is that you can switch the handle to the left side or the right side. So if you're a lefty or a righty, you can switch depending on who is fishing with the reel. That's a big upside that I don't see a lot of reels using, and I definitely think that they should be, especially for a beginner reel like this. You don't know which side you're going to be using, whether you're a lefty or a righty. Sometimes people like to switch. So it's a nice reel to kind of figure out which side you want your reeling hand to be on. Overall, it's a pretty quality reel, especially for the price. However, it's definitely something that I feel like is going to break pretty early on, and definitely could be a little bit more cheap, or could be a little bit more expensive, and it's more on the cheaper side. All right, if you guys have stayed this far, thank you so much. We are about to give my final conclusion and who this rod is made for, but before we do that, I'm going to ask you to subscribe. Please help us out. It would be so sick if everyone that clicks on this video who's not already subscribes because it's free. It helps us out, and it helps bring you guys more content. So please, it's free. Red button below, probably a link there. Subscribe. And then if you are interested, once again, in buying this rod and reel on Amazon for $16, there's a link in the description below, and a portion of the money that you spend on it will actually come to us. So if you are going to purchase this rod and reel, please use the link below because it helps support us. You have no idea, but it really, really, really helps us out in the long term. Okay, now that we've done an in-depth review of the rod itself, let's talk about who this rod is made for and if you should buy it. So this rod is made for a couple of people. First of all, ice fishermen. That's definitely someone who would benefit from using this rod. Another person is a beginner fisherman, especially someone that's doing a lot of freshwater fishing. This is not a rod that I would suggest for someone fishing for saltwater fish, probably over 5 or 6 pounds, because it's just not going to have enough line, and not the line is going to be too small for it. So this is definitely a freshwater rod. Bluegill, uh, small bass, crappie, maybe small catfish, maybe a carp. Just a ton of species that you could catch with this thing. Um, if you are a sabiki fisherman here in San Francisco, SoCal area, this might be a rod for you. What's nice about it is it's so cheap. $16, it gets you into the game of fishing. So really anyone can buy it, and it's not a huge investment. So it's definitely a really great rod for beginners. The only thing that I will say is when you do buy the rod, take off the line that comes with the reel and replace it with your own line. I would also highly suggest having a tackle shop near you spool it up for you. So we used 4-pound mono. We know how to spool up rods, but if you don't know how to spool up your rods, go to your tackle store, have them spool it up for you. If you're still here, thank you so much for watching till the end. You made it. A couple of things. First of all, subscribe. Second of all, if you are going to buy this rod, remember, link in the description below. And the third thing is we're doing favorite live streams. So you guys are probably like, what the hell is that? A favorite live stream is a live stream that we're going to be doing every Thursday from 4 to 4:30 Western time, I think. Yeah, Western time. And it's going to be on an app called Favorite. If you don't know what Favorite is, it's kind of like a social media site that sponsors us. So if you want to join those live streams, there's a link in the description below to sign up and tune in on Favorite from 4 to 4:30. Go follow us, JZFishing on Favorite. And Jack's going to be there, giving you the cool news, Q&As. He's going to be maybe showing you guys a video for Friday. Just a bunch of behind the scenes insider kind of stuff into our JZFishing life. So if you are a subscriber here and you've been subscribed for a while, or if you're new, go check it out. Favorite down in the description below, and check us out on our live stream this Thursday. It's actually going to be tomorrow. Yeah, it's going to be tomorrow from 4 to 4:30. So yeah, go check us out. That being said, that's about it for today's video, and we'll see you tomorrow.